In the heart of the African savannah, life and death hang by a single moment. Under the blazing sun, two lions fought not just for survival, but for each other. What happened next, a deadly python, a desperate struggle, and an unlikely rescue, will move you in ways you never imagined. This isn't just a story about animals. It's a story about loyalty, courage, and the raw power of nature. Stay with us until the end to witness every breathtaking moment of this incredible rescue. Don't forget to like, comment, and follow for more astonishing wildlife stories that touch the heart and inspire wonder. The unforgiving African sun hammered down on the Serengeti plains, turning the once vibrant landscape into a shimmer of heat and dust. Every cracked ridge of earth reflected the relentless glare, creating illusions of water that vanished the moment they seemed within reach. The air trembled with the harsh rhythm of heat waves, and even the faintest breeze carried the dry, acrid scent of parched soil. In this world, life existed on the edge, where survival was never guaranteed, and each step could be the difference between living and dying. Through this barren expanse, two golden shapes moved with cautious determination. A massive male lion, his mane dulled and tangled with dust, walked alongside a lean and vigilant lioness. Her sharp eyes scanned the horizon constantly, and each twitch of her ears revealed an acute awareness of the dangers hidden in the tall grass. Though exhausted, the pair pressed onward. Days without substantial water had drained their energy, yet instinct propelled them forward, stronger than fatigue, stronger than fear. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a wildlife biologist who later studied this incident, would explain that while lions can survive 4 to 5 days without water, the oppressive heat of more than 110 degrees Fahrenheit made every hour feel like an eternity. Each step the lioness took sent small clouds of dust into the air. The ground beneath her paws cracked and groaned, a stark reminder of the harsh reality of drought. The male lion followed closely, his powerful muscles flexing with each laborious stride, but there was no hesitation in his movements. Despite their immense size and strength, even apex predators were not immune to the merciless cruelty of nature. For 3 unrelenting days, they had wandered the arid plains, following the faintest hints of moisture that might betray a hidden water source. Their journey was more than physical. It was a test of patience, endurance, and instinct. Overhead, vultures circled lazily, their shadows stretching across the burnt grass as if to mark the passing of time. The lions ignored them, focused on a distant hope that might only exist in their minds. The lioness, usually the primary hunter of the pair, led the way, her movements fluid and precise despite her fatigue. Every sense she possessed, from the faintest smell of wet earth to the subtle shift in wind carrying moisture, was tuned to detect the life-giving water that could sustain them. The sun climbed relentlessly, reaching its zenith in the cloudless sky. The lions paused atop a small rise silhouetted against the glaring light. Their golden fur glistened with dust and sweat, highlighting the toll the journey had taken on their powerful bodies. For a moment, they stood motionless, statues of wild majesty, their bond palpable in the quiet tension between them. Then the lioness shifted, her eyes narrowing as she caught a subtle movement in the distance. With a barely perceptible signal, she started moving toward a cluster of acacia trees, and the male lion followed without hesitation. As they approached, the dry, cracked earth began to hint at something precious. Nestled between sparse trees was a depression, and within it, a shallow puddle glimmered like a hidden jewel. It was only 3 inches deep, muddy and warm, but to the lions, it was the oasis of their desperation. The lioness was the first to reach it, lowering her head with deliberate care and taking slow, measured sips. Each lap of water seemed to revitalize her, though she did not abandon her vigilance. The male lion stood guard nearby, muscles taut and eyes scanning the surroundings, aware that even a moment's vulnerability could be fatal in this harsh landscape. Water, however, rarely arrived without danger. Hidden in the shadows of the undergrowth, a silent observer lay in wait. The python, massive and ancient, had been drawn to the same life-giving puddle. Over 15 feet long, with scales patterned perfectly to blend into the dappled sunlight and shade, it had endured the same parching heat as the lions, seeking relief from the relentless drought. Its coiled body rested, waiting for the opportune moment, patient and calculating. The tranquility shattered without warning. The python struck with lightning speed, jaws opening to reveal curved, deadly teeth. The lioness had no time to react before the snake latched onto her shoulder, beginning its powerful, crushing coils around her torso. The male lion leaped back, startled by the sudden appearance of the reptile, and for the first time that day, the air seemed to vibrate with panic and tension. Pain and surprise erupted in the lioness's roar, a sound of raw fury and terror. She twisted and snapped at the python, trying to dislodge the deadly grip. The snake, however, was relentless. Its method was not to kill outright, but to constrict with terrifying efficiency, preventing the victim from inhaling and cutting off blood flow to vital organs. Each movement the lioness made only tightened the coils, and soon blood began to seep from the puncture wounds on her golden shoulder. The struggle was as much about willpower as it was about strength, and for a creature of her size, the python's grip represented a significant threat. The male lion, recovering from initial shock, circled the combatants with a mixture of frustration and rage. He swatted at the python's tail with immense force, yet each strike risked harming the lioness. His deep roars echoed across the savannah, a sound that carried fear and desperation alike. To anyone observing, the scene was surreal. The hunter caught in the grip of a predator it would normally pursue us, while its mate attempted to assist against all odds. Miles away, Rangers Thomas Barry and Michael Amandi were monitoring the drought-stricken wildlife. Their trained ears picked up the unusual, distress-filled roars of the male lion. Barry, head veterinarian for the conservation team, recognized the urgency immediately. "This isn't a territorial call or a mating roar," he said, voice taut with concern. "This is pure distress." Without hesitation, they turned their jeep toward the source, the dust of the savannah trailing behind them as they raced to an unknown confrontation. Every second mattered. The lioness was trapped in a life-threatening situation, and the male's efforts, though courageous, were insufficient to release her from the python's iron grip. Observing this from a distance, the Rangers felt the ethical weight of intervention. Nature's law was harsh and impartial, yet the human impulse to save life burned fiercely. They approached cautiously, engines quiet, aware that any sudden movement could provoke either the snake or the male lion. As the lions continued their desperate struggle, a bond emerged, one that went beyond instinct. The male lion refused to abandon his mate, despite the danger, circling protectively, roaring and positioning himself between her and other threats. It was a rare glimpse into a depth of loyalty and empathy that even seasoned wildlife experts found astonishing. Dr. Mitchell would later write that this behavior defied conventional understanding of lion social dynamics. It was not just survival, it was devotion. The moment hung suspended in time, the sun beating down on the savannah, vultures still circling lazily overhead, and the lioness's strength slowly waning. The python, perfectly adapted to exploit this vulnerability, continued its deadly embrace, muscles tightening with each exhalation. Yet hope persisted in the unspoken communication between the two lions, a shared determination that neither would surrender easily. In that desolate, burning landscape, life had become a test of resilience, courage, and the invisible threads that bind living beings. And as the Rangers closed the distance, their hearts pounding in anticipation, the first stage of this extraordinary story reached its tense climax. Two lions facing the raw forces of nature, bound by loyalty and the instinct to survive, were on the precipice of a confrontation that would test every limit of endurance and bravery. The moment the lioness lowered her head to drink, the savannah seemed to hold its breath. The shallow puddle, shimmering weakly in the glaring sunlight, was more than a source of life. It had become a battleground. Hidden among the dappled shadows of the nearby acacia trees, the python waited. Its scales, mottled with greens and browns, blended seamlessly with the uneven terrain, rendering it invisible to any unsuspecting prey. For days it had endured the same relentless drought that had driven the lions into this desperate pursuit. Water was life, and the serpent's instincts were honed to seize it at every opportunity. Then, in a sudden, almost imperceptible motion, the python struck. Its massive head lunged forward with the astonishing speed for a creature of its size. The lioness, distracted by relief and thirst, was caught completely off guard. The first contact was sharp, teeth biting into her shoulder with precision designed not to inject venom, but to anchor her in place. Before she could react, the python's muscular body began to coil around her, each loop tightening with an unyielding determination. The male lion leapt backward, his instincts roaring as loud as his voice. He had never encountered a predator like this in his territory. To the human eye, the scene was almost surreal. The apex predator, the embodiment of strength and authority, entangled helplessly in the grasp of a constrictor that had no venom, no claws, no sharp fangs. Yet the python's method was deadly in a way the lion could not counter alone. The lioness twisted violently, claws raking across the snake's patterned body, attempting to loosen the iron grip. Her powerful jaws snapped at any section of the python she could reach, but for every coil she freed, another tightened. The puncture wounds on her shoulder began to bleed, streaking her golden fur with crimson, a stark visual testament to the ferocity of the encounter. Pain, fear, and determination warred within her, yet surrender was not an option. The male lion, recovering from his initial shock, moved in with caution. Each swat at the python's tail was calculated, designed to disrupt the snake's position without further injuring his companion. Yet the serpent's coils were formidable. It wrapped tighter with every motion, muscles contracting rhythmically in a constriction that left no margin for error. The male lion roared again, a sound carrying both rage and desperation, its vibrations scattering birds into the sky and causing small mammals to vanish into the brush. This was no ordinary roar of dominance. It was a call for aid, an alarm of imminent peril. The python, aware of the male lion's presence, adjusted its grip, maintaining perfect pressure on its captive while assessing the threat. Its cold, unblinking eyes reflected a primal intelligence, a single-minded devotion to survival. The landscape seemed to vanish around the trio. The hot wind, the circling vultures, the distant horizon all faded as the life-and-death struggle consumed the moment. The lioness, though trapped, displayed extraordinary resilience. Each desperate exhale fought against the python's constriction. Every bite, every twist of her body a declaration of willpower. She was no ordinary prey. Apex predator though she was, the python had chosen her not at random, but because survival had driven it to take a calculated risk. A snake of such magnitude, targeting a lioness, was engaging in a gamble where failure meant starvation and success meant sustenance for weeks. Time stretched interminably. The sun, high above, began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the cracked earth, but the struggle continued as if daylight were irrelevant. For miles around, the plains were silent, yet the sound of roaring, hissing, and the subtle crunch of claws against earth created a chaotic symphony. Even the most experienced rangers, upon arriving later, would describe the intensity of the scene as unlike anything they had ever witnessed. In that distant moment, the male lion's behavior became even more extraordinary. He did not abandon his companion, even when a rational analysis of risk would suggest flight. Instead, he circled protectively, occasionally lunging at the snake, using his size to intimidate without direct engagement. Dr. Sarah Mitchell would later note in her field journal that such behavior defied known patterns of lion social dynamics. Most male lions would retreat in the face of an insurmountable threat. This lion displayed loyalty that transcended instinct, bordering on what humans might recognize as empathy. From the undergrowth, the python's tongue flicked rhythmically, sensing every movement in the air, measuring the scent of blood and fear. Its body, thick and muscular, coiled with a precision that spoke of evolutionary perfection. Constriction was not about brute force alone. It was methodical, exploiting the lungs' natural rhythm, tightening slightly with every exhale, maintaining enough pressure to prevent escape while ensuring the prey could not counterattack effectively. For the lioness, every breath was a negotiation with death, each heartbeat a reminder of the peril she faced. Miles away, Thomas Barry and Michael Amandy sped across the savannah in their dusty jeep, guided by the male lion's guttural distress roars. Each sound carried information, urgency, alarm, and desperation, embedded in the vibrations that seasoned rangers had learned to interpret. Barry, as a wildlife veterinarian, understood the gravity of what awaited them. The question was no longer whether intervention was justified, it was how to do so without escalating the danger. As the Rangers closed in, their minds raced through scenarios. A tranquilizer dart might immobilize the lioness, but it could also trigger panic, causing the python to constrict further. Any misstep could be fatal, and yet inaction guaranteed a similar outcome. The ethical dilemma loomed as heavily as the physical danger. To act, or to watch nature take its unrelenting course? In that tension, time became to both ally and enemy, compressing every second into a moment of extreme consequence. Back at the waterhole, the struggle reached a new intensity. The lioness's breathing grew shallower, her golden eyes glazing with the first signs of exhaustion. Blood streaked her shoulder, the stark red a vivid contrast against the muted brown and gold of the savanna floor. The male lion's eyes flickered between the python and his mate, measuring the risk and gauging his options. Every movement was deliberate, every roar calculated. This was not mindless aggression. It was strategy born from necessity and a bond forged through shared survival. The python, sensing the precariousness of the situation, coiled tighter, its head lurching slightly to reinforce its grip. The dance of predator and prey, hunter and hunted, had reached a fever pitch. Survival instincts on both sides were stretched to their limits. Here, there was no margin for error, no chance for miscalculation. A single lapse could decide the outcome permanently. And yet, within this chaos, a thread of hope persisted. The male lion's presence, steady and unwavering, offered a chance, however slim, for intervention. For the first time, the Rangers glimpsed the possibility that their arrival might tip the balance. The Savannah, usually indifferent to suffering, had placed them at the edge of a story that would challenge perceptions of loyalty, courage, and the delicate line between life and death in the wild. In this isolated puddle under the brutal sun, the fate of two apex predators and one colossal python was intertwined. Each breath, each movement, carried the weight of instinct, experience, and perhaps something deeper. The bond between creatures, even in a world dictated by survival. The confrontation had escalated beyond a simple predator-prey encounter. It had become a testament to resilience, strategy, and the extraordinary capacity for determination that existed in the untamed heart of Africa. The dusty plains of the Serengeti blurred past the speeding jeep, every bump and ridge in the terrain vibrating through the vehicle. Thomas Barry gripped the steering wheel with white-knuckled determination, eyes scanning the distant horizon for any sign of the lion's desperate roars. Beside him, Michael Amandi crouched, binoculars trained on the sprawling savanna, ears straining to catch every nuance in the cries that had first alerted them. The male lion's anguish was unmistakable, a guttural, harrowing sound that cut through the air like an alarm bell. It carried information, urgency, and an unmistakable call for help that only those experienced in wildlife behavior could interpret fully. "Bari, I've never heard a lion sound like that," Amandi shouted over the roar of the engine, his voice tight with adrenaline. 15 years in the Serengeti had taught him much, but this was different. It was not the deep, resonant roar of territorial dominance or the raucous mating call of the pride. It was pure, unfiltered desperation, a vocalization born of pain, fear, and the imminent threat of death. Bari nodded, his eyes never leaving the horizon. "Just get us there," he replied. His hands moved deftly to prepare tranquilizer darts, though he knew instinctively that they were a last resort. The lioness was strong, but her condition was already compromised. Any sudden shock from sedation could push her beyond the edge. The male lion, meanwhile, was in a delicate dance with the python, and any misstep could provoke him to defensive aggression. As the jeep crested a small rise, the scene unfolded in horrifying clarity. There, at the tiny waterhole, it was the lioness, her golden fur streaked with blood, the python's coils constricting her torso with lethal precision. The male lion moved around her in protective arcs, muscles tensed, his mane bristling with tension. His roars continued, alternating between warning the python and seemingly urging his companion to fight. The magnitude of the encounter struck the Rangers instantly. The battle between two apex predators and a colossal python was unlike anything they had ever witnessed. Bari quickly assessed the situation. The python's grip was methodical, its coils tightening and relaxing with a rhythm that made direct intervention risky. The lioness's breathing was labored, shallow, and increasingly dangerous. Each pulse of the constriction cut off air and blood circulation, placing her at the very brink of unconsciousness. Bari and Amandi knew the clock was ticking. Every second mattered, and hesitation could mean the difference between life and death. "This is beyond anything we normally encounter," Bari muttered, more to himself than to Amandi. "We have to be precise, deliberate, or she won't make it." Their training had prepared them for wildlife emergencies, but this situation was unprecedented. A convergence of extreme drought, predator behavior, and human intervention. Protocols often dictated minimal interference, allowing nature to take its course. But nature had brought them to a rare moment where morality and survival demanded action. From his position circling the python, the male lion's behavior was remarkable. Rather than attacking recklessly, he maintained a tense vigilance, measuring the threat and guiding his mate with subtle gestures. Each step, each roar seemed calculated. He moved in a way that protected the lioness while giving the rangers a marginal window to intervene safely. It was almost as though he understood their intentions, a notion that left both Bari and Amandi momentarily awed. The rangers dismounted, moving carefully toward the waterhole. Every step was cautious. The dry, uneven ground threatened sudden slips, and the male lion's gaze followed them with piercing intensity. Bari raised his hand slightly, not as a threat, but as a gesture of respect toward the massive predator. The snake, sensing multiple intruders, tightened its coils reflexively. The lioness's eyes, half closed from oxygen deprivation, flickered weakly at the approaching humans, a subtle acknowledgement of potential aid. Bari and Amandi quickly conferred, whispering low, rapid instructions. "We start at the tail," Bari said. "We create space for her lungs first. No sudden movements." The plan was simple in theory, but fraught with peril in execution. The python's immense strength meant that even a small miscalculation could result in serious injury. Every second spent unwrapping the coils had to be calculated precisely, synchronized with the lioness's strained breaths and the male lion's protective movements. The first attempt was tense. Using long sticks, the rangers gently probed the python's lower coils, pressing and nudging to loosen its grip without triggering an aggressive strike. The snake resisted immediately, muscles bulging under the ranger's careful pressure. Its head lashed out once, narrowly missing Amandi's arm, reminding them of the lethal capability of the reptile. Heart rates accelerated, adrenaline surged. Yet the male lion's presence added a strange reassurance. He paced carefully, positioning himself between the rangers and the snake, a silent guardian watching every move with measured calculation. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Gradually, the first coil loosened, creating a fractional increase in the lioness's ability to inhale. Her eyes fluttered open, glazed but alive, and her powerful instincts kicked in. With each fraction of relief, she regained a spark of energy, twisting her neck slightly, snapping her jaws at the python where possible. The male lion responded, nudging her gently with his massive head, seemingly offering encouragement. The moment was surreal. Predator, prey, and humans engaged in a life-or-death collaboration that defied understanding. Bari and Amandi continued carefully, unwinding coil after coil. The python's reflexive tightening made every second dangerous, yet the ranger's patience and the lioness's resilience created a rhythm, a fragile harmony amidst chaos. Slowly, the lioness began to draw deeper breaths, her strength returning incrementally. Even in her weakened state, she exhibited the same indomitable will that had carried her across the drought-stricken plains in search of water. Throughout the process, the male lion's behavior was extraordinary. He never left her side, nor did he allow the rangers to approach recklessly. He seemed to understand their intentions, positioning himself strategically, pacing carefully, and occasionally emitting low, guttural rumbles that communicated both warning and reassurance. His intelligence and emotional response were palpable. For the humans witnessing it, the moment felt almost sacred. This was no ordinary animal interaction. This was loyalty, courage, and strategic collaboration manifest in the wild. Finally, after painstaking effort, the rangers managed to loosen enough of the python's body for the lioness to gain leverage. With one final surge, she twisted violently, muscles straining, and freed herself from the remaining coils. Staggering several feet away, she regained footing, bloodied but alive, lungs drawing deep, life-restoring breaths. The python, frustrated but unharmed, recoiled defensively, and Bari and Amandi quickly secured it using long sticks, careful to maintain control without further harm. The immediate threat had passed, but the drama had only deepened the Rangers' respect for the complexities of life in the savannah. The male lion remained by her side, occasionally nudging her, offering a silent reassurance. His eyes met the humans occasionally, an unspoken acknowledgement that this intervention had been understood and accepted. The dynamic between predator, prey, and human observer had shifted in ways both remarkable and humbling. In those final moments at the waterhole, the Rangers could see the full scope of the encounter, the raw power of nature, the fragility of life, and the extraordinary depth of loyalty and intelligence that existed within these apex predators. The lioness, though injured, stood as a testament to resilience. The male lion's protective presence symbolized devotion beyond survival instinct. The python, though denied its meal, retained the lethal elegance for which it was known. The tableau of savannah life, brutal and beautiful, had revealed a narrative that would challenge the Rangers' understanding for years to come. And as the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the plains, the waterhole bore witness to a rare convergence of courage, loyalty, and intervention. A moment where survival, instinct, and human ethics collided in a story that would be remembered long after the dust had settled. The waterhole, once a symbol of relief in life, had transformed into a stage for the fiercest battle between survival instincts and sheer determination. The lioness's strength had been severely compromised by blood loss and constriction, her golden fur matted and streaked with crimson. The male lion remained by her side, an unwavering sentinel, muscles coiled like springs, eyes fixed on both the python and the approaching humans. Every movement, every breath carried weight. The balance between life and death was delicate, as fragile as the shallow puddle they had discovered. Bari and Amandi exchanged terse glances, each silently confirming the other's thought. Precision was paramount. One wrong move, one misjudged angle, and the consequences could be catastrophic. They had faced dangerous animals before, but the combination of a massive constrictor, a weakened apex predator, and a protective mate was unprecedented. The ethical and physical stakes intertwined, making the operation as much a test of judgment as it was of courage. "Start at the tail," Bari whispered, adjusting his grip on the long stick. "Loosen it gradually, let her breathe, and don't rush. One coil at a time." The plan, though simple in concept, required nerves of steel. The python's tail was thick, each muscle cord taut and resilient, coiling with a strength that belied its apparent slowness. As they began to manipulate it, the snake reacted instinctively, tightening its midsection in response. Several times it struck out, snapping its jaws in reflex, but the Rangers remained steady, careful, synchronized, and calm. Meanwhile, the male lion's behavior was extraordinary. He moved closer, positioning himself strategically between the python and his mate. His presence was protective but non-aggressive, a calculated display of restraint that allowed the humans room to work without feeling threatened. Occasionally, he would emit low rumbles, almost conversational in tone, as if assessing the human's intentions. Every shift in his posture seemed intentional, as though he understood that cooperation was required for the lioness to survive. Bari and Amandi, for a fleeting moment, felt the weight of mutual trust being extended across species boundaries. A rare, humbling phenomenon. Gradually, the first coil loosened enough to provide the lioness with marginal breathing space. Her chest expanded more fully for the first time in minutes, her golden eyes fluttering open with faint sparks of awareness. The relief was palpable, even as the python's coils remained formidable elsewhere. With renewed determination, she twisted slightly, snapping her powerful jaws at the constrictor where possible, each strike precise and deliberate, not panicked. Her movements, though weakened, displayed the same lethal efficiency that had earned her survival through countless battles in the wild. The Rangers pressed on carefully, unwinding coil after coil. Each maneuver required coordination. Amandi guided the python's tail with measured pressure, while Bari monitored the lioness's breathing, ensuring no sudden constriction threatened her fragile state. Minutes passed as if stretched by eternity, the sun sinking lower in the sky, casting long, distorted shadows across the waterhole. Dust rose in faint clouds with each motion, mixing with the metallic scent of blood and sweat. The tension was nearly tangible, and even the distant birds remained eerily still, as if the savannah itself had paused to witness the unfolding drama. At last, enough of the python's body had been loosened for the lioness to gain leverage. She summoned the last reserves of her strength, twisting violently and breaking free from the remaining coils. Her first step was shaky, limbs trembling under the strain, but she staggered away from the snake, gaining a momentary reprieve. The male lion immediately shifted his position to flank her, nudging her gently with his massive head, an unspoken gesture of encouragement and reassurance. In that instant, predator and prey, human and animal, were locked in a complex choreography that defied conventional understanding of the wild. The python, frustrated but unharmed, recoiled defensively. Bari and Amandi moved swiftly, using long sticks to pin the massive reptile while carefully controlling its head. With practiced precision, they immobilized the snake enough to prevent further aggression. Every movement was deliberate, every decision measured to minimize risk. The humans had not merely survived the encounter, they had facilitated a rare alliance between species, balancing intervention with respect for the natural order. The male lion observed intently, his eyes flicking between the rangers, his mate, and the python. Despite his proximity to danger, he made no aggressive moves, allowing the humans to perform their delicate work. Occasionally, he would pace a few steps, then return to his protective stance beside the lioness, muscles flexing under taut skin, eyes reflecting amber flecks of intelligence. It was a remarkable display of emotional depth, an apex predator exhibiting a level of awareness, patience, and restraint that left the rangers momentarily awestruck. Once the lioness was safely distanced from the python, Bari assessed her injuries. Blood had seeped from puncture wounds on her shoulder, and the physical and oxygen deprivation had left her weak and disoriented. Her breathing remained labored, a reminder of the close call she had just survived. Yet, despite her condition, she displayed a flicker of resilience, leaning against the male lion, rubbing her head against his mane in a gesture of trust. The bond between them was undeniable, a partnership forged not only through instinct, but through shared endurance against the harshest realities of the wild. The python, though thwarted in its attempt, had survived. Bari and Amandi decided to relocate it to a nearby riverbed several miles south, a location with sufficient water and prey, but safely away from the lion's territory. Using coordinated effort, they moved the massive reptile with care, ensuring its survival while protecting both lions. The act was a subtle reminder that intervention did not necessitate destruction. It was possible to preserve life even amidst the chaos of a life-or-death encounter. Attention then returned to the lioness. Bari recognized the need for medical care to prevent infection from the python bites and to address the shock from blood loss and physical trauma. Yet approaching her directly posed risk. The male lion remained vigilant, allowing the rangers to plan a safe course of action. Bari prepared a long-distance tranquilizer, taking into account the lioness's fragile state and ensuring minimal stress. Every calculation was critical. Any misstep could compromise her recovery. As the dart was readied, the male lion leaned close to his companion, offering support and encouragement through subtle nudges and a protective stance. The moment was extraordinary, a display of trust, intelligence, and emotional depth in a wild predator rarely documented. Bari fired the dart with precision, embedding it in the lioness's flank. She flinched slightly but did not panic, a testament to both her condition and the calming influence of her mate. The male lion observed, understanding that the human action was not a threat, and maintained his vigil, ensuring the rangers could work without interference. As the tranquilizer took effect, the lioness gradually relaxed, her body softening but still supported by the male lion. Bari and Amandi moved cautiously to tend to her wounds, cleaning puncture sites and monitoring her breathing. Her chest rose and fell in measured rhythm, and with each passing moment, she regained strength. The male lion stayed close, occasionally nudging her gently, his protective instinct unwavering even as human intervention facilitated her survival. The sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the savannah with hues of gold and crimson. In that quiet twilight, the waterhole bore witness to an extraordinary rescue, a delicate interplay of human skill, animal intelligence, and instinctive loyalty. The lioness's survival was not merely a triumph of medical intervention. It was a testament to the extraordinary bonds that exist in the wild, the resilience of life, and the unexpected moments where courage and cooperation converge. And as the rangers finally retreated, the lioness leaning against her steadfast companion, the Savannah returned to its rhythm. The python slithered away toward the riverbed, and the male lion remained by the waterhole's edge, vigilant yet calm, a silent guardian ensuring the safety of his mate. In this rare intersection of fate, nature, and human involvement, life had prevailed, not by chance but through determination, courage, and the extraordinary will to survive. The sun had begun its slow descent, casting long golden shadows across the Serengeti, as if the landscape itself was taking a breath after the chaos that had unfolded. The shallow waterhole, now calm and unthreatening, bore the marks of a struggle that had tested the limits of life, endurance, and loyalty. The lioness lay carefully supported by the male lion, her chest rising and falling with steady, yet cautious breaths. Though still weak from blood loss and oxygen deprivation, she had survived the python's deadly constriction thanks to the coordinated efforts of the rangers and the unwavering vigilance of her mate. Bari and Amandi, exhausted yet relieved, stepped back to reassess the scene. Their careful intervention had worked. The python had been relocated to a riverbed several miles away, safe from the lions and with access to water and prey, while the lioness had survived against staggering odds. But the story was not merely one of physical survival, it was a profound testament to resilience, loyalty, and the often unseen intelligence that governs the natural world. Even in the face of overwhelming danger, bonds between creatures could transcend species, instinct, and circumstance. The lioness shifted slightly, leaning against the male lion for support, rubbing her head against his thick mane in a display of trust and recognition. The male remained alert, muscles tensed yet controlled, eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. His behavior suggested more than instinct. It hinted at comprehension, patience, and perhaps an emotional understanding of the situation. The rangers observed in quiet awe, aware that they were witnessing something extraordinary, a predator demonstrating care, cooperation, and awareness that defied conventional understanding of animal behavior. Bari moved closer, carefully monitoring both lions. "She's stable," he whispered to Amandi, who nodded silently, keeping his eyes on the male lion. The ethical implications of their intervention weighed heavily on both men. Normally, conservation protocols dictated minimal interference with natural predator-prey dynamics. Yet the drought had created conditions that had pushed all wildlife to extremes, forcing unusual behavior and circumstances. In this case, human assistance had not only preserved life, but had worked in tandem with nature, respecting the natural instincts and roles of the animals involved. As twilight deepened, the lioness's wounds received initial attention. The punctures from the python's teeth were carefully cleaned, and the rangers assessed the need for antibiotics to prevent infection. Despite her exhaustion, she remained alert to her surroundings, a testament to the survival instincts honed over years in the harsh savanna. Her golden eyes flickered toward the approaching humans, then toward the male lion, reaffirming a bond that had been forged through mutual dependence, trust, and shared peril. The male lion shifted closer, nudging her gently, as if acknowledging the assistance of the rangers while simultaneously asserting his protective presence. His posture remained tense, but it was a controlled tension, alert, vigilant, yet accepting of the human's role in aiding his mate. In a rare and humbling display, he allowed intervention without aggression, demonstrating a level of intelligence and emotional complexity that left the rangers momentarily speechless. It was a scene that would stay etched in their memories, a silent reminder of the extraordinary depth of life in the wild. As the rangers finished attending to the lioness, the question of long-term care arose. Approaching a large, injured predator always carried inherent risks, even when the animal appeared cooperative. Bari carefully weighed the options. Tranquilizing the lioness to administer full treatment was risky given her already compromised state. The male lion's presence provided both protection and reassurance, allowing minimal intervention while ensuring she would remain safe during the critical recovery phase. The night settled over the savanna, bringing a profound quiet that contrasted sharply with the violent struggle of earlier hours. The male lion stood vigil, his massive frame silhouetted against the fading light. The lioness, though weak, remained close to him, drawing both comfort and strength from his presence. The relationship between them had been tested by extreme adversity, and their bond had proven unbreakable, demonstrating a level of loyalty and empathy rarely observed in wild animals. Bari and Amandi documented every detail of the encounter, recording the behavior of the lions, the movements of the python, and their own interventions. Their notes would become invaluable for future research on predator interactions, wildlife rescue strategies, and the nuanced dynamics of animal intelligence and emotion. For years, they would recall the male lion's patience, restraint, and seemingly conscious decision to allow humans to assist his mate, a behavior that challenged conventional understanding and opened new questions about emotional depth in wild predators. By dawn, the lioness had regained enough strength to stand on her own, albeit shakily. The male lion stayed close, moving with her as she tested her limbs. Together, they navigated the waterhole carefully, aware that the python had been relocated and that the immediate danger had passed. Every movement was cautious but confident, a delicate balance between vulnerability and regained strength. The pair embodied resilience in its purest form, surviving the harshest tests the savannah could offer. The rangers departed slowly, giving the lion space while maintaining a safe distance. Bari felt a mixture of pride, awe, and humility. He had witnessed extraordinary courage, not only in the human's intervention, but in the innate bravery and loyalty of the lions. This was a story that transcended survival. It was a living lesson in trust, compassion, and the sometimes unseen emotional complexity that exists in nature. In the days that followed, the lioness's condition stabilized fully. The male lion continued to guard and support her, demonstrating consistent vigilance and care. Researchers who later observed the pair noted subtle behaviors, nudges, shared hunting strategies, and protective positioning that suggested a deep bond had formed or strengthened through the crisis. These behaviors were not dictated purely by survival instinct. They reflected communication, empathy, and mutual reliance that extended beyond basic predatory necessity. The python, relocated to a riverbed miles away, resumed its natural behavior. It had survived, its hunting instincts intact, yet its failed attempt highlighted the delicate balance of power and vulnerability that governs the savannah. Nature had continued its cycle, but with a rare intervention that preserved multiple lives. The event would later be cited in discussions of ethical wildlife intervention, demonstrating that under extreme circumstances, humans could act to aid life without undermining natural processes. The story of the lioness, the male lion, and the python spread among wildlife circles, eventually becoming a case study in both bravery and collaboration. It inspired awe not only for the resilience of the animals involved, but also for the careful coordination, courage, and judgment of the rangers. It was a reminder that even in the wild, where life and death are daily realities, extraordinary bonds can emerge, and survival can be a shared endeavor across species. As the sun set on the Serengeti, painting the horizon with brilliant hues of orange and gold, the lioness and her mate rested near the waterhole. The air was calm, the tension replaced by a profound stillness. Life had prevailed, not by chance, but through courage, instinct, intelligence, and the rare moments where intervention and natural loyalty converged. The plains, vast and indifferent, yet filled with remarkable creatures, bore witness to a story that would endure far beyond the dust, blood, and sweat of that fateful day. This encounter left a lasting lesson. In the harshest of environments, life finds a way through courage, cooperation, and loyalty. Sometimes survival is not just about strength, but about bonds, between mate on a bait, predator and prey, and even between human and animal. The Serengeti, in all its brutal beauty, had revealed its capacity for unexpected connections, a reminder that compassion and respect could exist even amidst the most unforgiving landscapes. For those who witnessed it and those who would later hear of it, the story was a call to honor the wild, to recognize the intelligence and emotional depth that exists in nature, and to act with courage and wisdom when life hangs in the balance. It is a narrative that encourages reflection, empathy, and respect. a timeless reminder of the extraordinary within the ordinary, the miraculous within survival.